Hello and welcome to my channel. Bonjour et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel and here we are, my first review. And as promised, it is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Now, before I dive in, I would just like to mention that I will probably be spoiling the book a bit. And also, as I mentioned in my Booktube newbie tag and my explanatory note, I will be reading quotes at the end of the review. If you're not interested in that, I will put the timestamps, is that what you call it, down in the description. Right, let's get into this. So, The Handmaid's Tale is about a dystopian version of the United States. Basically, the United States has fallen and been replaced by a theocratic state called the Republic of Gilead. And one of the more unique features of that republic is that it has decided to gather up all the fertile unmarried women and basically to commodify them, make them available to couples who need/want children. And so they are ritually raped every month in the hopes that they will produce a child that will then go to the couple. It's basically state-sanctioned surrogacy justified on religious grounds. It's all justified with biblical passages and all that crap. And this arises because of a fertility crisis and because religious nutsos, am I right? That's the basic premise. And the story is told from the point of view of a single female character, Offred, who is herself a handmaid, one of those women who are shipped out to couples in the hopes that they will bear children for them. To me, this is a truly great novel. It is a classic for a reason. It is obviously a very well-written book. Now, I'm really rubbish at describing writing, but I'll try and do my best. I would say the writing is clear, crisp. It packs a lot of meaning in relatively straightforward language, but, you know, there are beautiful metaphors in this novel, some of which I'll quote later. You know, nothing is out of place. The pacing, I think, is really good as well. The way it's structured, you basically have chapters that have a theme name, and then you have chapters that are night, when Offred is alone in her bedroom, thinking about her situation, her past, things like that. The characters, well, so like I said, the story is told from Offred's point of view. You only know what's going on in her head, and she's not always terribly likable, I found. Sometimes I found her too complacent with what was happening to her, and it's only towards the end of the story that she starts to realize that, no, you know what, I don't need to just survive. I can aspire to live again, to be a person and, you know, better my situation. Now, the other characters, so you've got the commander, the head of the household to which Offred is assigned, so he's basically the guy that rapes her every month, who falls in love with her. I mean, he's a moron, really. I mean, he thinks with his penis, let's be real here. He basically comes off as vile, but naive as well, is how I would put it. You've got Serena Joy, who, for those who aren't quite aware of this, is quite different from the way she's portrayed in the TV series. You don't really actually learn much about her. She's not really present in the novel like she is in the TV series. She's sort of just there, hovering. She wants a baby. She was a televangelist, basically, but she's just this negative presence for Offred. But then you also have characters which aren't as present in Offred's day-to-day life, like Moira, her best friend from college, really like her. You have her mother, and she has a very complicated relationship with her mother. That's one of the themes of the books, I would say. How Offred contextualizes her female relationships in a world where female relationships have become extremely rigidified, codified, but also devalued, because if women gather, they have more power as a group, right? I think her character arc is well done and interesting. Like I said, she starts out being pretty complacent almost. No, definitely internalizing the system. There's this great scene where you have basically Japanese visitors to Gilead, and the women are made up like a lot of women would be, you know, with heels and makeup. And Offred is almost disgusted by them. She's really quite disturbed, even though she herself did that. not that long ago. And then, of course, you have the aunts in the red centers where the handmaids are trained. And, they basically serve the function of an Uncle Tom. They're the women recruited to keep the other women in line. And, of course, I talk about handmaids, I talk about wise aunts. Let's get right onto it. The world building. This is the true strength of this novel, I think. The way she structures the hierarchy of Gilead, the way the women are dressed and recognizable by their color, the way they're separated in different functional castes. So you have the domestic labor caste, which is the Marthas. They are basically servants, cooks, things like that. You have the emotional labor caste, which is the wives. And then you have the reproductive caste. Not sexual, though. It's not supposed to be sexual. The handmaids, they're just supposed to be wombs on feet, basically. Poor men get econo-wives. Econo-wives have to do everything themselves. They have to be servants, wives, and handmaids, bear babies, if they can. What really sold it for me, though, is how the Republic of Gilead comes into power. Because the scenario she proposes is extremely bloody plausible. Now, this is a spoiler, outright. Basically, the way it happens is a state of emergency is declared after there is a massive terrorist attack on the Congress, I believe, and perhaps another institution of power, done by the Sons of Jacob, which is the religious organization at the root and at the top of the Republic of Gilead. And then they pin it on Islamic terrorists. I think that's fascinating because that could happen. That really could happen if you think about it. Now, obviously, Margaret Atwood, at the time this was written in 1984, was probably inspired for her theocratic regime by the Islamic Revolution of Iran in 1979. And, other theocratic regimes throughout history. It's so great because it's so terrifyingly plausible. The story itself is quite slow. It's a gentle progression. And actually, it doesn't take that much time. The story, I think, happens in the span of, a month? I mean, of course, there are flashbacks to Offred's life before Gilead. And like I said, it's a gentle progression. It's not an action story, definitely not. It's about world building, it's about character, psychology, how we deal with oppression, how we approach rebellion. It's about resistance, fundamentally. It's about witnessing, simply. I think Margaret Atwood herself said this about the sequel, The Testaments. It's a literature of the witness. Offred is a witness to what is happening around her and to her. She then becomes a more active protagonist, of course, towards the end, but fundamentally she is a witness. So it's quite a slow story, but I never felt bored. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. Because you fundamentally know it's building up to something, right? But it's gentle. She takes your hand. She brings you along into her story. Wants you to know that she exists, and she experiences these horrible things, and she wants you there with her to be a witness to her experience. And then there's obviously a few other themes, how religion gets used and more importantly, misused by those in power or by those who seek power. It's also fundamentally a book about women, women's societies, though this is a very twisted example of a women's society. There's also a subtext about feminism, I feel. I know that Margaret Atwood doesn't consider this a feminist novel. I still think this is a feminist novel because it does talk about gender, sex-based oppression. Obviously, I mean, this is the epitome of sex-based oppression. It's because women carry babies that they're being used this way. And there's also a slight reference to different approaches to what it is that we talk about when we say female empowerment or female freedom or women's rights, because you can contrast Offred's mother, who is more of a second waver. I wouldn't say she hates men, but she's pretty tired of them and she doesn't need them and she just wants to be with her female friends and her female activist friends. She goes to, evenings where they burn porn magazines. And then Offred, who just wants to have a family, settle down. And her friend, she's a bit more rebellious. She's more of an activist. And she's also more open to trashing, but I guess in a loving way, Offred's choices for her personal life. And it's interesting to see Offred reflect on all of this. Perhaps her mum and her friend weren't so wrong to be concerned. I think there's a lot of questioning going on in Offred's mind. A word on the ending. It's an open ending, yes, but it works. It works brilliantly. I've had times when I read a book and there was an open ending and you were like, oh, come on, don't leave me hanging like this. Or worst case scenario is like, what? What was this? What did I just waste my time reading? Now, this is a good open ending. A quite poetic, beautiful open ending. And, well, I mean, obviously it's not quite as open as it used to be now that the sequel is out. But yeah, a beautiful ending to a beautiful book. I should also mention a little gimmick I really enjoyed, which is the epilogue. And, you know, it's an academic symposium that takes place 100 years after the end of the story. It also tells you basically that Gilead didn't last, thank goodness. It's a reflection upon how we choose to view the past, perhaps to justify some of the horrors of the past. You know, it touches upon the question of historical relativism. Is that a thing? Should we judge the past? Should we not judge the past but still not be flippant about the horrors that happened back then? I'm not giving my personal opinion here, I'm just saying this is kind of what the epilogue touches upon. And also how we project our own biases onto our analysis of the past and of historical events. So that was a brilliant little thing to insert in there, I think. It's a brilliant novel, really. What else can I say about it? You should definitely read it if you haven't already. Shame on you. No, of course not. If it's not your thing, don't read it, obviously. But if you enjoy dystopian fiction, feminist fiction, fiction about, you know, batshit politics and its consequences. And now I will be reading quotes from The Handmaid's Tale. It isn't running away they're afraid of. We wouldn't get far. It's those other escapes, the ones you can open in yourself, giving a cutting edge. There is more than one kind of freedom, said Aunt Lydia. Freedom to, and freedom from. In the days of anarchy, it was freedom to. Now you are being given freedom from. Don't underrate it. I wait. I compose myself. Myself is a thing I must now compose, as one composes a speech. What I must present is a made thing, not something born. They were paintings about suspended animation, about waiting, about objects not in use. They were paintings about boredom, but maybe boredom is erotic when women do it, for men. Now the flesh arranges itself differently. I'm a cloud, congealed around a central object, the shape of a pear, which is hard and more real than I am and glows red within its translucent wrapping. Inside it is a space, huge as the sky at night and dark and curved like that, though black-red rather than black. Pinpoints of light swell, sparkle, burst, and shrivel within it, countless as stars. Every month there is a moon, gigantic, round, heavy, an omen. It transits, pauses, continues on and passes out of sight, and I see despair coming towards me like famine. To feel that empty, again, again, I listen to my heart, wave upon wave, salty and red, continuing on, marking time. To have them putting him on, trying him out, while he himself puts them on, like a sock over a foot, onto the stub of himself, his extra sensitive thumb, his tentacle, his delicate stalked slug's eye, which extrudes, expands, winces, and shrivels back into himself when touched wrongly, grows big again, bulging a little at the tip, travelling forward as if along a leaf, into them, avid for vision. Anyway, what do I need it for? I don't want a man around. What use are they except for 10 seconds worth of half babies? A man is just a woman's strategy for making other women. But who can remember pain once it's over? All that remains of it is a shadow, not in the mind even, in the flesh. Pain marks you, but too deep to see. Out of sight, out of mind. But if you happen to be a man, sometime in the future, and you've made it this far, please remember, you will never be subjected to the temptation of feeling you must forgive a man as a woman. It's difficult to resist, believe me, but remember that forgiveness too is a power. To beg for it is a power, and to withhold or bestow it is a power, perhaps the greatest. Better? I say in a small voice. How can you think this is better? Better never means better for everyone, he says. It always means worse for some. By telling you anything at all, I'm at least believing in you. I believe you're there. I believe you into being. Because I'm telling you this story, I will your existence. I tell, therefore you are. And that's it for my first ever review. Next up will be the Testaments. Until then, have a lovely day. Bye bye.